today we are going to deal with the various teaching strategies that is essential for the outcome based education. Let me share my PowerPoint presentation with all of you. I hope my presentation is also available.
Yes, ma'am, visible.
Thank you very much. So when it comes to the use of different instructional strategy for outcome based education, it is as per the program outcomes and the course outcome in general. But as a teacher, when a subject is being allotted, it is as per the lesson plan that you have designed. So what are the different learning outcomes that have been designed by the faculty? After evaluating the nature of those learning outcome and requirements of those learning outcome, in terms of knowledge, in terms of psychomotor development, or in terms of the kind of behavior you want to develop among your student population, the teacher is going to select an instructional strategy. Say, for example, as a teacher, if I'm dealing with a subject that is totally theoretical by nature, so maybe I will go by a flipped classroom, maybe I select a lecture method, maybe it is my choice to select a demonstration method, it is my choice to select an activity that is note taking, it is my choice to select a method that is 1 minute paper or stump your partner, or I can complete that particular content by using jigsaw method or think pair share approach. So it is totally dependent upon the comfort of the faculty, also in line with the learning outcome and in line with what objective you want to attain with the help of that particular teaching methodology. So when it comes to the different teaching methodology at large, the basic purpose is to develop understanding related to that particular content among student population. So when I'm saying understanding need to be developed among student population, Benjamin Franklin rightly said, tell me and I forgot, teach me I may remember, involve me I learn, and Albert Einstein said, any fool can know, the point is to understand. So, when it comes to an outcome based education, and nowadays we are using the term faculty. So, because information is already available in abundance, there are number of courses that are available online and offline. The content is also available. While sitting at my institute, my student can enroll for a program on NPTEL that may be engaged by an expert from IIT system. My student may enroll for a program for NIT faculty. So, in today's system, information is not a problem. How am I audible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So nowadays, information is not a problem. The information is available in abundance. It is the teacher who is going to facilitate the process of understanding. So there are number of courses that are available, and it is the choice available with the student that whatever content they are more liking, whatever information they are up to the mark, they can select that kind of information and go for that information. In today's environment for outcome-based education, or as per NEP 2020, the role of the teacher is to facilitate the process of learning. So maybe I'm not going to develop a content, I'm going to map the content that is already available. And it is my choice that what kind of environment in my classroom I want to create. So academic flexibility is available with the faculty member. So in classroom environment or in another academic activities, as the choice of the teacher, as per the nature of the content and as per the information available, the teacher can plan for the classes. So when it comes to teaching in outcome based education, the teacher need to think of that what can be the number of activities we can plan that with the use of available resources. So whatever best available resources at institute, how it is possible for me to utilize all those kind of resources to create an environment where my students are able to go through that information, and at the same time they are able to develop understanding related to that particular information. So this kind of academic flexibility is available with the teacher, that whatever resources available with them, as per the choice of the resources, the teacher can plan for the different kind of classes. Another important thing that we need to consider is when it comes to teaching, the teaching must results into equivalent amount of learning. Say, for example, if I'm selecting a lecture method as a teaching approach, In a lecture method, what are the type of questions that I am going to ask to my student? Is it open ended question? Is it closed ended question? Is it a multiple choice test paper that I'm going to give to my student? So what kind of information, what kind of understanding I'm going to evaluate, so that it is clear to me that whatever I'm delivering or whatever I'm teaching, an equivalent amount of learning is happening in my classroom environment. Another important thing that we need to consider is, when we said that we are going to facilitate the process of learning, it is not only that I'm going to cover the subject matter for my class student as per the curriculum of that particular subject assigned to me. I'm going to develop understanding, but at the same time, I'm going to modify the behavior of my learner also, so that they are able to do more target specific tasks. So when we say target specific task, it is the regularity in terms of behavior of the student that the student need to display in a classroom environment in the presence of the faculty. So teaching must results into equivalent amount of learning, and teacher must consider all the dimensions that help us to modify the behavior of the learner. We are not going to restrict ourselves only up to the curriculum defined, but by considering the demands of the other stakeholders also. It may be industry, it may be different working environment, it may be the societal need. We need to consider all those dimensions before creating that kind of a learning environment, and before selecting any of the teaching strategy for our students. Say for example, as a specialized in the field of environmental engineering, when I'm dealing with the topic, any topic related to environment, and I'm dealing with engineering student, so engineer mean, for the development of a sustainable society, we need to produce something, we need to do something so that society can work on sustainable means. So when I'm dealing with any topic assigned to me or any subject assigned to me, I need to consider the needs of the society also. What are our regional problems? What are the problems that we are facing at global level, as well as environmental issues are concerned. So in my class, I'm not just focusing, or I'm not just facilitating information related to the topic, but at the same time, at a global level, what kind of thinking I need to develop among my student population. So that kind of teaching need to be there. So in this line, there are few traditional teaching methods available with us, and there are few advanced teaching strategies available with you. It is not that traditional teaching methodologies are not going to work. Traditional teaching methodologies are also good for the teacher to use, depending upon the nature of the content, depending upon the level of the student, and depending upon the maturity or their past experiences. There are advanced teaching strategies that we can use for the more matured learners, because we consider some sort of skills are already being developed among that particular population, and likewise we are selecting the different kind of teaching methodology. Another important point that I want to consider over here is, when I'm saying the teaching methodology need to be selected by the teacher, and say while sitting at Nita Chandigarh, I cannot say that from now onwards we are going to use the blended approach of teaching, or the best teaching methodology for you is a flipped classroom. That may be not the comfort of you as a faculty. So when I'm dealing with my class student, I need to consider my own comfort also, in what teaching methodology I am professionally trained, or what is my comfort when it comes to use that teaching methodology in a classroom environment. So I cannot blindly say that from today onward or from tomorrow onward you are going to use XYZ teaching methodology. As a teacher, you need to consider the kind of resources available, your comfort, the presence of the students in the class, what are their perception, what kind of environment they want, what are their learning needs. Accordingly, the teacher is going to create a environment for the students to learn and select an appropriate teaching methodology. So whatever you are teaching, it is as per the curriculum assigned, but how you are teaching, it is you as a teacher who is going to decide what is more beneficial for your students in a class. Now, all the participants are requested to kindly read all the principles of effective teaching available with you on screen, and try to identify what is the most common factor given in all these principles. You can take 2 minutes to read all the seven principles and try to analyze that what is common given in all these seven principles of effective teaching. Yes, any member from the group? The very first principle is encourage student instructor contact, encourage cooperation among student, encourage active learning, give prompt feedback, give prompt feedback. Um, Next is emphasize time on task, communicate high expectation, and respect diverse talents and different ways of learning. Any member from the group? All the seven principles of effective teaching talk about the kind of learning environment in which the flow of communication is two-way, and at the same time when the teacher is designing tasks and activities for the student, those tasks and activities must be target specific tasks. So students need to provide a very clear picture that whatever activity or task they are going to complete, what are your expectations as a faculty, and up to what level you want your students to develop related to that particular activity. So in a classroom environment, when the teacher is creating such kind of an environment, most of the student, I'm not saying all the students of your class, but most of the student of your class will feel engaged in that process of learning and helping each other to complete the targets that is given by the teacher. So, in an outcome based education, when we talk about the different learning outcomes are always written with the help of action verb. Action verb means what my student will be able to do. So, those are always explained or those are always defined with the help of different action verb. But at the same time, as a teacher, I may have few learning intended objective. So, whatever objective that is defined by the teacher is learning intended objective. So, after analyzing the content, after analyzing the syllabus or the curriculum of the given subject, the teacher need to identify that up to what extent I need to develop my student as far as excellence in this particular subject is concerned. Say another example, say for example, a subject of research methodology for master level student and for doctorate level student. So for a doctorate level student, there is a different kind of orientation that we need to give. For a master level student, there is a different kind of orientation that is required. So when I'm saying for doctorate level student, a different kind of orientation is required, it may not be possible for me to give that orientation in 1.5 hours of a class. I may need activity based sessions. I may need my students to fully involved. I may need collaborative group where supervisors of those students can work along with me for the development of information of that particular subject. So at departmental level, when we are saying we are going to develop a subject, it is not only the single faculty who is going to develop that subject, it is the whole department that is working towards that teaching learning environment. So when we are saying there is a two-way flow of communication, there is a target specific task given to the student. So rather than asking the student to learn about report writing, I can assign activity, I can assign a technical topic to the group of my student and ask the students to write a technical report, and after that there will be a discussion where your report will be evaluated by your departmental faculty and faculty members who are dealing with that particular subject. But the point of discussion is when we are saying now we are creating outcome based education environment or we are using advanced teaching learning strategies at institute level, it is not only the single faculty who is working towards the creation of that particular environment, but there is a pool of faculty members or a team of faculty members that need to be developed at institute level for the creation of such kind of environment. So it is not an easy task to select any of the teaching methodology and go by that. We need to develop a proper strategy that how we are going to implement it. So after creating a teaching environment for the selection of any method, we need to understand what we mean by learning. So when it comes to a learning, the student population plays an important role, And learning is not always restricted to memorization. The student need to develop understanding, the student need to analysis of that particular information, they sometimes need to evaluate, synthesize and create with that particular information. It may not be design, it may not be prototype model, but the design of their thinking, it can also be in that sense also. So when we said learning, so teacher will create an environment and teacher influence the student to take part in those activities so that learning can happen. But who will learn? It is the student of your class, it is the student of your department who is going to learn out of that particular environment. And as per the research, the learning results from what the student doesn't think and only from what the student doesn't think. The role of the teacher is only to create an environment that influence the students to learn. And how practically the students are going to learn? When the teacher is creating a systematic kind of experiences for the student, when the teacher is giving organized experiences to the student, when the classes are full of observation, student have a chance not only to interact with the faculty, but at the same time student have a chance to interact with the materials. Why I'm saying material? Because largely we are dealing with technical student. So student have a chance to work in laboratory, deal with materials, deal with resources. They are able to deal with the data collected, they are able to interact with the peers of their group, they are able to interact with the alumni network. So these are all the pillars of a learning environment. So learning is not from the transfer of information from the teacher head to the student head. There are many processes or many functions that need to be covered before learning takes place. So when the teacher is creating environment in which the students are influenced to learn, at the same time the department need to create an environment in which students can create discussions, student can design their own thinking, students can develop their understanding related to the content, not only with the help of the faculty but the peer group learning or outside experts may be called upon, and student must have a chance to interact with actual resources so that they can link to the information they have covered in their theory classes with the help of verbal delivery. So that kind of environment help us to use the more advanced teaching methods. So, in nutshell, when it comes to the learning, it's a process of acquiring and integrating through a systematic process of instruction and organized experiences, varying form of knowledge and skill and understanding that the learner may use or apply in later situation and understand condition that is different from those of the instruction. Say, for example, if I want to deliver a lecture on a blended learning, or if I want to deliver a lecture on flipped classroom method of teaching, what teaching methodology I need to understand first? कौन सा टीचिंग मेथड मुझे पता होगा सो दैट आई एम एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड मोर एडवांस टीचिंग मेथड्स अवेलेबल? Okay, I will change my question. What teaching method we used a lot? Any member from the group? PowerPoint presentation. Thank you very much, sir. But PowerPoint presentation is not a teaching method. It is a tool by the use of which we are using different teaching methods. PowerPoint is a teaching aid. Chalk and talk. Think, pair, share. Thank you very much, Amar sir. Group discussions. Thank you very much. So there are many methods that is given by the participants. So thank you very much all the members for your input. So if I want to go or develop my understanding for advanced teaching methodology, the first teaching approach in which I need to excel is the lecture method. So I hope you all agreed with me that the most common method that is used by all of us as far as teaching learning activities are concerned is lecture method. In lecture method, maybe I'm using PowerPoint, maybe I using chalk and board, maybe I using an online platform. But what I'm doing is I'm just developing verbal explanation for my student. So most of us are using lecture method because we consider our faculty member as our role model. The way they were uh, delivering the session, the same we are following. So but the question arises that when it comes to fulfill the demands of the education policy, or most largely when it comes to the student population whose characteristics changed a lot in terms of not only in terms of expectations, but their EQ IQ ability is also varied nowadays. In that particular case, what kind of organized experiences are essential for the student? Even at a school level, the student who is in the class of fourth or fifth grade, they are able to design PowerPoint presentation. They are not typing. Some of the students are not typing the content. They are using the translation mode on their Google, and they are simply verbally explaining the content, and they are able to design very good PowerPoint presentation. So why we need advanced education methods or advanced teaching strategy? The kind of experiences that we was giving to our student, that may not be very good for the future generations to come. And we as a faculty need to professionally train that how it is possible for me to organize experiences for my student, so that they can spend maximum of the time for the completion of the activity, rather than noting down or rather than copying the information that is already available on internet resources. So we need to think of those teaching methods that help our students to engage in the process of learning. So when the students are engaged in the process of learning, the learning will be active, and students learn what they care about and remember what they understand. One must learn by doing the things, for though you think you know it, you have no certainty until you try it. Say for example, the last case that we have discussed, the case of blended learning. Say for example, if my department assigned me the topic of delivery of blended learning, so I can now if I directly go to internet, find out some PowerPoint presentation, read few of the content available, and prepare one session of a blended learning. But maybe during the session, when somebody or some participant asks me the question, I need to develop a complete understanding for the topic assigned to me. It is not only blended learning, from where this conception arises, and how with the limited resources, or how with the less of training available with all the faculty member, how they can go for this blended learning kind of an approach. So what is the application of that particular session that need to be think of by me before designing or before delivering any session to the members? So when we are saying that one must learn by doing the thing, I have prepared very good PowerPoint presentation, verbal explanation is available with me, but until unless I'm not trying that blended learning approach at institute level or somewhere else, I may not be able to identify what can be the probable challenges and how we are going to eradicate those challenges. So for every teaching method or for every teaching strategy that is selected by me, I must have some kind of application or process orientation toward that teaching methodology before using that in my actual classroom environment. So when the teacher is creating an environment where learning is active, when I'm saying active means students are taking part in different activities, discussions. In that particular case, the students will perform many of the work in the presence of the faculty. And most of the time we are using lecture method again and again. So lecture method is basically a verbal explanation that is developed by the faculty for developing understanding of the content. So my next question to all the members is do you think that lecture method is a good approach of teaching? And if it is a good approach of teaching, as per your opinion or as per your perception, what kind of content we need to cover with the help of lecture method? Yes, any member from the group?
It is helpful only when we are giving an advanced topics in that same area. Then only the lecture method is more effective. Otherwise, it is demonstration is the good idea to continue.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Any another member who would like to add? Okay, when it comes to the use of the lecture method, for the development of basic understanding related to that particular content. So when I'm saying basic understanding, say for example, if you are from the branch of electronics and communication engineering, there is a different kind of technical vocabulary that is used by the faculty and student. Me from the branch of chemical and environmental engineering, there is a different kind of technical vocabulary or different signs and symbol with which I'm very much familiar of. So your technical vocabulary may vary, my technical vocabulary may vary depending upon our core of specialization. So when it comes to the development of the basic kind of information to start with, for any subject to start with, lecture method is a very good approach, because with the help of lecture method, maximum time is available with the faculty to dealt with the new area, to dealt with the new topic and develop a basic level of understanding. When I'm saying development of remembering, development of lower level of understanding, development of application part of that particular content. So it may be a lecture method divided into three different parts, where the first part is about introduction about that topic, second is the developmental phase of that particular lecture, and third is the conclusion phase of the lecture. So in a lecture method, I can utilize demonstration method of teaching to develop more advanced information. So, but the basic level of understanding can be developed by the use of lecture method, because maximum time is available with the teacher. And once that level of understanding is developed, the teacher can use more advanced teaching strategies like think, pair, share, numbered head together, jigsaw, simulation, role play. So there are number of teaching methods available that teacher can select for. Very rightly added by Vedavati ma'am, that when it comes to the use of a lecture method, the teacher can convert a traditional lecture into an advanced teaching strategy if the teacher can incorporate few of the individual active learning strategies in that. So one, rightly added by ma'am, the one method may be the demonstration method. So I hope that video is available with me. I want to show you the actual use of demonstration method in a class. Let me share that video with all of you, if available with me in the system. Yes. In this video, the teacher is using the demonstration method.
A pendulum. I have an object that weighs 15 kilograms and I can lift it up 1 meter, which I have done now. That means I've done work. MGH is the work I have done, believe me. I've increased the potential energy of this object. 15 times 10 is about 150 joules. If I let it fall, then that will be converted to kinetic energy. If I would let it swing from 1 meter height, and you would be there and it would hit you, you'd be dead. 150 joules is enough to kill you. They use these devices, it's called a wrecker ball. They use them to demolish buildings. You lift up a very heavy object, even heavier than this, and then you let it go, you swing it, thereby converting gravitational potential energy into kinetic energy, and that way you can demolish a building. You just let it hit, and it breaks a building. And that's the whole idea of wrecking. So you're using then the conversion of gravitational potential energy to kinetic energy. Now, I am such a strong believer of the conservation of mechanical energy that I am willing to put my life on the line. If I release that bob from a certain height, then that bob can never come back to a point where the height is any larger. If I release it from this height and it swings, then when it reaches here, it could not be higher. There is a conversion from gravitational potential energy to kinetic energy back to gravitational potential energy, and it will come to a stop here. And when it swings back, it should not be able to reach any higher, provided that I do not give this object an initial speed when I stand here. I trust the conservation of mechanical energy for 100%. I may not trust myself. I'm going to release this object, and I hope I will be able to do it at 0 speed, so that when it comes back, it may touch my chin, but it may not crush my chin. I want you to be extremely quiet, because this is no joke. If I don't succeed in giving it 0 speed, then this will be my last lecture. I will close my eyes. I don't want to see this. So please be very quiet. I almost didn't sleep all night. 3, 2, 1, 0. Physics works, and I'm still alive.
So in this video, we have covered an teaching methodology, that is demonstration method, that any of the faculty can use in their traditional lecture approach. So, but the question is, to display this kind of a teaching practice in front of all the students of your class, how many times the teacher needs to practice it? Yes, before using demonstration teaching method, do we as a faculty, do we need to practice it? Yes. So thank you very much, Ashish sir. So when it comes to the point of discussion is when it comes to the use of real object in a classroom environment. So in teaching learning methodology, those real objects are considered as relias. So when it comes to the use of the real object in a classroom environment, and teacher think of the use of the demonstration method, first the teacher need to prepare the content. In this particular video, I hope you might also observe that teacher already developed the content on the board, and after developing the content on the board, means after developing understanding related to that particular content on board, the teacher started demonstrating that advanced information in front of students to provide organized and structured kind of experience. So when I'm saying advanced teaching strategy, that is demonstration method, it is not only the collection of the real objects by the teacher, but teacher need to practice a lot before demonstrating any activity or any process in front of the class student, to create an organized kind of experience. So the advanced teaching method demonstration required understanding and development at the part of the teacher also. So preparation is required at the level of the faculty first, only then we can use this teaching methodology in a classroom environment. So when the teacher is using a traditional lecture method, the teacher consider that all the students are of similar nature. So when I'm saying similar nature, means their level of understanding, or we can say the IQ ability, their past experiences, we consider all the students are at the same level. But we know practically it is not true. There may be students who varying in terms of their past experiences. There may be students who have different kind of inclination towards that particular subject. But when the teacher is just explaining verbally without giving any activity or any task to the student, many of the students felt disengaged in that particular environment, and retention of the material is start decreasing as the lecture continue. So most of the students are physically present, but mentally they are not available. So we need to think of, so when we talk about outcome based education, outcome based education means what my students will be able to do. So outcome, what is the outcome of that particular course or particular program or the particular subject? So when my students will engage, when I'm able to engage my students in more meaningful learning environments and activities, it is possible for me to engage my students for a longer period of time. So when they think about that information, what they are doing or what they are learning, they are able to develop their understanding. And at the same time, when we said students are of different nature, so they are not homogeneous. So in a classroom environment, there may be different level of intelligence available with you. There are few students who are number smart, there are students who are word smart, there are students who want to interact with material, there are students who are the global learner who do not want faculty to help every time. They will find out their way of learning, they will design their independent path of learning. The teacher need to create experiences in a classroom environment. The classroom must be full of diversity. When I'm saying diversity, means full of diverse activities, full of diverse experiences that need to be created so that students felt engaged. So any instructional method in a class, it is not possible for me to cater the needs of all the students. So if I'm thinking now by using think pair share method, it is possible for me to engage all the 60 students available with me. That is not true. So in a lecture, if I'm using a think pair share, in another lecture, I may need to use problem solving approach. In a third lecture, maybe I'm going to give a simple verbal explanation. In a fourth lecture, I'm using seminar method of teaching. In a fifth lecture, I may be using a project based learning approach. So we need to consider there are diverse students and there are diverse needs. Not a single teaching methodology is appropriate every time to use, depending upon what kind of experience you want to give to your student. That variety of experiences you need to plan within a semester. So any instructional method that help us to engage the students in the process of learning, help us to design that kind of an environment in a classroom environment. Yes, Samar sir, is there any question?
Good afternoon, madam. Yes, I have one question.
Yes sir.
Madam, there are various instructional methods which one can follow in class to engage the class and make the session interactive. But is there any procedure that for a particular session, which instructional method I can select?
So I hope you have already covered the topic of learning outcome.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
So in that particular topic or the session, you might have covered that there are different levels as per the Bloom's taxonomy.
Yes.
So when you said the level of remembering, I will directly go to that slide. We are
Okay,
going to
madam.
discuss this also in this session only. Just give me a second. So as per the literature in this particular field, sir, we have 101 teaching methods available with us. And as per the Bloom's taxonomy, these are the different levels. So earlier, the Bloom's taxonomy started with the knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. And in 2000, the group working under Bloom's earlier and then independently revised this Bloom's taxonomy, considering the characteristics of the Z generation. So after the revision of the Bloom's taxonomy, they also divided the different teaching approaches as per these different levels. I hope you already covered in the previous lecture. So when it comes to remembering and understanding, so when we saying that understanding can be for a practical understanding. It may not be available at a theoretical part. So when I'm saying understanding can be up to lower level, understanding can be up of higher level. So when I'm saying understanding, for evaluation, creation, analysis also, I need to develop an understanding. Only then it is possible for me to analyze information, to synthesize information, and to create something. So when I'm saying there are different teaching methodologies available, there are few of the examples that I have mentioned available with you all on screen. So when it comes to remembering and understanding, it may be 1 minute paper. So what we mean by 1 minute paper? So maybe you divided your lecture into three different parts. So the major strategy that is selected by a teacher, suppose, is lecture method. So maybe after delivering a 15 minutes of content, I simply ask to my class student that what are the different key points you consider appropriate or important as far as the content covered up to now. So I want my student to highlight the learning outcome that I wish my students to learn. So if I have defined something, if I have explained something, if the students are able to differentiate between two different processes, so they are able to give me the gist of those key points by the use of this 1 minute paper. So only time requirement for this particular strategy is 5 minutes. The teacher can ask the class student that what is important that you have learned up to now in this particular lecture. The second approach, that is note taking, but nowadays, considering the characteristics of this particular population, the students are not noting down the information. And as per my opinion, there is no need to repeat the information again and again that is already available. So when we are saying note taking in for this particular population may be the teacher design an activity sheet, give that activity sheet to the student, and when the teacher is developing information, students supposed to complete that activity sheet when the teacher was delivering, whether by the use of PowerPoint presentation or whether by the use of chalk and board. So that activity sheet is a note taking part of the student, and once the students are able to complete that activity, it is a hint to the faculty that students are able to develop their level of understanding. Muddiest point is another activity that we can use at this particular level. So muddiest point means what is the most complex part of today's session or today's lecture. Say for example, as a teacher, when I am preparing different lesson outcomes or the learning outcomes, I know that up to the level of the student available with me in my class, this part of information is very complex. So I know that in today's session the class is going to be tough for my student, so I need to simplify that information, and after simplifying that information in a class, I need to ask few of the complex questions to my student. So those questions can be open ended, those questions can be closed ended, and that must be full of factful information. So it is not opinion based, it is factful question the teacher is going to design. So when the teacher is designing these kind of questions, when the teacher is designing these kind of questions in a classroom environment, the teacher come to know that for the few of the statements the teacher students were ready, but there were few points that I need to revise again. So again, this particular strategy required 10 to 15 minutes of your class time. So likewise, graphical abstractions are there, different analogies can used by the teacher, concept map can be developed by the teacher can also give image analysis. A diagram is given, ask the student to label that particular diagram, ask the students to identify the different component in that labeled diagram. So these kind of activities can be developed by the teacher as far as remembering and understanding is concerned. So likewise, sir, for application, analysis, evaluation, creation, there are many teaching strategies available with us. Say for example, when it comes to somebody from the group said the group discussion method of teaching is used. So my question to all the participants, that is it possible for me to cover the content or the syllabus of the student with the help of group discussion? क्या हम ग्रुप डिस्कशन से अपने सब्जेक्ट सिलेबस को कवर कर सकते हैं?
No, ma'am.
No. So group discussion can be used for the development of different soft skill. It is not a teaching methodology as far as our core engineering subjects are concerned. So when it comes to the group discussion, the advanced teaching strategy. So advanced teaching strategy is a fishbowl method of discussion. So there are two different approaches of fishbowl method of discussion that I'm going to explain at the end of this particular session. So a teaching strategy is fishbowl method of discussion. For analysis, we can use structured problem solving, application based exercises can be given, or even the peer learning environment can be created at a classroom. So that is up to the level of analysis. For evaluation, case studies can be given, minor major projects can be given, critics can be called for a content, visioning and futuring. For creation, a project based learning environment need to be created. So depending upon the levels of the Bloom's taxonomy, the teacher need to create different kind, or teacher need to select different type of teaching methodology. So I hope it is clear to you, sir.
Yes, madam, it's clear. Thank you so much, and very nice explanation you have given.
Thank you very much,
One
sir.
one more thing I would like to ask. Might be you may cover that part in the next part of your session. But if I conduct some activity later on, do I need to prepare the report of this activity? And actually, it's required. But what things or what contents are to be covered in that report?
So, sir, it is totally dependent upon what type of activity you are going to give. So, as far as the assessment is concerned, whenever the teacher is designing task or activity to the student, first, as per the demand of outcome based education, those activity sheets or those tasks need to be self-explanatory. When I'm saying self-explanatory, means student after reading that activity sheet need to understand that what are your expectation from that particular activity. You can design a rubric sheet for that particular activity, give that rubric sheet to the student along with the activity assigned to them. So that rubric sheet provide an assessment criteria that on what basis the student need to prepare for that particular activity. The teacher can also use online evaluation tools available. That topic is already there in your syllabus, so I'm not going to get into the detail. So there are small evaluation tools the teacher can use within a classroom environment without any additional support. But yes, whenever you are giving an activity or assignment, assessment need to be there. So continuous assessment of student performance need to be there so that they can gradually improve upon the quality of the work. So those tasks, those activities may need not to be quantitative assessment, it may be qualitative, but the feedback in terms of evaluation always need to be given by the teacher. So when I'm saying na rubric can be created, so if rubric is available, students already know that these are the parameters. If I have covered, I will be in excellent category. If I have not covered, I will be in XYZ category defined by the teacher. So in that case, you need not to give individual feedback to every student. You already provided a written criteria and students can follow that particular criteria. You can also upload these kind of evaluation sheets on your LMS or Moodle, whatever available at institute. But yes, when we are using advanced teaching strategy, continuous assessment of student performance need to be there. Otherwise, they results into nothing. हम लेक्चर मेथड में भी क्वेश्चन पूछते हैं ना,
Yes,
when
madam.
we are using lecture method.
Yes,
The
yes.
purpose is to engage the student and to know up to what level it is possible for me to develop their understanding. Likewise, in different teaching strategies also, the role of teacher is very difficult. So when I'm saying the fishbowl method of discussion or
Yes, madam.
think pair share method of discussion or jigsaw method of discussion, who are going to prepare questions for those teaching methods? When you are giving, say for example, a flipped mode of teaching, in a flipped mode of teaching, the content is given by the teacher. Nowadays, in this information age, when the content is available in abundance, maybe one student take 8 long hours to prepare that activity and another student may take only 2 hours to prepare that activity. So when I'm assigning an activity to the student as a teacher, I need to prepare a list of web references or the content or the structured notes to the student. I need that kind of information to be handed over to the student before assigning the flipped classroom session to my student, so that every group of student will refer to the same kind of references and prepare for the session. जब मैंने evaluate करना है, I am going to evaluate suppose out of 20, एक बच्चे ने तो 8 घंटे लगाए हैं, दूसरा स्टूडेंट 2 घंटे में प्रिपेयर करके आ गया है, तो मुझे उस चीज को कंसिडर करना है कि वॉट एवर रिसोर्सेज अवेलेबल विद द स्टूडेंट, at the level of preparation, students need to be on the same platform, so they have a similar kind of a content. And when I'm identifying the web references and giving the flipped session, assign flipped session to my class student, at that time as a teacher I also need to advance my information.
Okay,
So
madam. In connection to this, there is one more question. Suppose my innovative activity is on CO1 and I have rubrics and then I have completed the report also. So I have seen how many students have attempted that activity properly. So as this activity is related to CO1, whether I have to include this report while I am doing attainment of CO1?
no, you need
No.
not to.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much,
As
madam.
far as your classroom assessment is concerned, now this is between faculty and students.
Okay, okay, okay. Thanks
So
a
you
lot,
need
madam.
not to share all the minor details of your classroom
Yeah,
environment.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, okay. Thank you so much, madam. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, sir. So when it comes to the use of the advanced teaching strategy, and many of the students are with us in the process of teaching learning, the retention of material, it may be up down, but most of the student will be with you during those sessions. So when we are saying that we are using advanced teaching approaches, In advanced teaching approaches, when the teacher is assigning activities to the students are performing those activities in the presence of the faculty. So it is not that I'm just going to my class, delivering the session, and coming back. For every lecture, as a faculty, I need to prepare a lot. So preparation, when we are using advanced teaching strategy, need to be there at the part of the faculty also. Once that preparation is completed, only then the teacher need to select for that teaching methodology. Say we have seen the video of demonstration method, the teacher need to prepare first before using any of the teaching method in a classroom environment. So why we need to use advanced teaching strategies or active learning approaches? Because we need to give variety of experiences to our student. That is why we are selecting and designing different activities. When the students are performing something in the presence of the faculty, the students are more active rather than passive. Greater emphasis placed on the exploration of attitude and values. So when I'm saying fishbowl method of discussion, where group of students are discussing about the content, when as a teacher I'm asking open-ended question to my class student, when I'm using a numbered head together as a teaching strategy where team of the students need to work together for the attainment of a common goal, when I'm assigning minor project and major project activities to my class student, again there is a value system or attitude that need to be developed among that particular group. So advanced teaching strategies not only help us to the development of the course information, but at the same time these teaching strategies help us for the development of positive attitude and value among students also. When the students are involving in different active learning strategies or teaching strategy, the teacher is there that who can provide immediate feedback. As sir asked na, what kind of assessment need to be there, so your class must be full of continuous assessment activity. So in this particular case, as a teacher, we need to consider that we are developing along with our student. So I am not only the knowledge master available in my class, maybe my student go for more advanced information available with them on different websites, or available with them with the help of the student pool that they have created with the outer universities or institutions. So maybe I'm going to get something out of my class also. So our teaching become more developmental, we are more accepting towards that particular environment, we become flexible, adaptable to the changes that we want to create in that particular environment. So when we said advanced teaching methodology, control, or we can say discipline in these kind of classes may be different. These classes may be full of humor, these classes may be full of discussion, these classes may be full of activities, these classes may be full of sharing experiences. So those sessions are not the quiet classrooms, concrete structure where students sit together and listening to the faculty only or recording to the information of the student. Those classes will flow as communication flow. And when I was preparing for this particular lecture, to my surprise, on YouTube, there are many videos available from the foreign universities and foreign school system, not the latest one, but from the year of 1987, 1990, where the teachers of those universities are using these advanced teaching strategies for engineering students. So I have seen many videos for chemical engineering classrooms, for human resource management classrooms, where the teachers are actually using these teaching strategy and the students are performing activities. So those kind of teachings are not the spoon feeded kind of teaching environment. In those environments, students worked a lot so that they can get something out of that particular system. So it is not the score game. On day to day basis, the students are learning something from that particular environment. So if you have a time, you can also search for these kind of videos that are available. Now the question arises that it may be NEP 2020, it may be outcome based education, it may be the credit system that is working in different IIMs or IITs. So why we need these kind of classes? Why we do not need a directive kind of teaching, but a development kind of a teaching approach for the future population to come? And at present in our institutions also, why we need this kind of a teaching environment? The very first understanding that we need to develop for this particular information is we need to understand that different people learn in different way. Now observe in your department, observe at your hand, the way at your home, the way you are learning the things may be different from your colleague. The way you are synthesizing and collecting information may be different from your fellow colleagues. So your perception of collection of information may be different. Another member may have a different perception of collection of information. So, in different institutions, maybe engineering or diploma colleges, at the end of the semester, there are few students who comes to you and ask for the notes. They asked for reference material. So those students want information in a structured manner. That is why they are asking for notes or any kind of reference. There may be student who certainly demand the PowerPoint presentation that you have used in your session, and they are very happy with those PowerPoint presentation. They prepare the content and appear in an examination. There may be students in your class to whom you consider that this particular student is not much interested because he or she is not asking question or not taking part in most of the activity. That individual may score highest marks at the end of the semester. He may be a global learner who is able to select information from multiple resources, able to synthesize information, analyze information, and then present information in his or her own language. So every individual in your class may have a different or unique ability to learn. So that is why the classes must be full of diverse kind of experience. Some are very good in visual presentation, some are very good in verbal presentation, some are very good as and when required by the faculty to provide in terms of information. Another thing that we need to consider is that we all have a different kind of knowledge pool, or in simple terms we can say that we have different kind of a past experiences, and depending upon the previous knowledge collected, we try to link our existing knowledge and able to identify the answers of the different questions asked by the faculty. Means my thought process may vary from my fellow student. So I may have a different kind of a past experience, another student may have a different kind of a past experience. So here's one question available with you on screen. Try to identify the correct answer of this statement. You can also write in the chat box. There is another question in a chat box by Mr. Amar. For a particular subject, how many activities are to be conducted? Sir, it totally dependent upon your course outcomes and lesson outcome that you have designed. So as the lesson demand, we need to plan for the activity, but at the same time, not every lesson demand for an activity. It totally dependent upon the lesson outcomes. The right answer for this particular statement is C, that is one boy and one girl. And the statement selected from the topic of probabilities from the subject mathematics. So that is why I was saying that we all have different kind of previous experiences. We developed our knowledge pool over the period of time, and whenever a statement displayed in front of us, we start collecting information without thinking much about that particular statement. On the screen itself, it is written a misconception question. So most of the participants go by the picture and consider that all are equally likely. So it is not the visual presentation that you need to focus upon, but you need to consider that what information is given in this statement. So likewise, the students in my class come with the different kind of experiences. They have different kind of knowledge pool depending upon the formal as well as the informal education they are getting from the system. So they have a different kind of a knowledge pool, and their thinking, their way of learning things may be different. So that is why whenever the teacher is asking questions in a classroom environment, The teacher need to consider pause time or think time. Ask the student more simplified question first. When they start thinking in that particular line, the teacher can shift the focus towards the structured kind of a statement so that they can think of the information they can learn. Learning by nature is an active endeavor. So when we are saying we are learning, we are memorizing, that is okay. So if somebody said me define something, explain the equation of GPP, what is R in that particular equation, what we mean by first order equation, what is pseudo first order equation. So that is the remembering part. So I can remember anything if the information available with me. Learning by nature, but for that remembering also I need to spend some time. Basically, when it comes to the development of the different skills, we need to practice. The best thing to pass engineering is to practice, practice and practice. So we cannot drive a car just by reading a manual. We cannot operate a laboratory machine just by reading that manual available with that machine. We need to do something before making it working in an accurate condition. So learning by nature, so it means we need practice. Timetable क्या है? There is one class for the subject of mathematics. Student need to switch off from mathematics to communication skill class. From communication skill, the student need to start thinking about the subject of thermodynamics. As soon as the thermodynamic content is over, the teacher is explaining the content. Next teacher is waiting out of the class. The teacher wind up the session in hurry, and the student need to shift their focus to heat transfer after thermodynamics. So the teacher has a chance to change for the sessions, but student continuously shifting their learning pyramid from one level to another level. So when we are saying learning by nature is an active endeavor and everybody learn in a different way, we need to consider the pause times between the sessions also. So if your class is of 50-minute, plan your lecture or plan your class in such a way that last 10 to 15 minutes the student will process information. So when they are processing information in the presence of the student, so when I'm saying faculty, when I'm saying process information, maybe you're asking a question, maybe you are assigning an activity, maybe you're just creating humor in a class, maybe you're just discussing something that is not related to the subject, but that information help the students to streamline their thinking. They can process amount of information that you have covered, and then they are ready to shift to the next kind of learning. So learning by nature is an active endeavor, but at the same time, the teacher need to consider think time and pause time in a classroom environment. Another important thing that we need to consider is it's a learning pyramid, and as per the research in this particular area, depending upon what teaching method is selected by you, the retention of material may vary. So if the teacher is using a traditional approach of lecturing, that is just verbally explaining the content to the student, the retention of material is only 5%. If you involve students in the process of reading, the retention is only up to 10%. If the teacher is using YouTube video or recorded sessions for the student, the retention of material is 20%. When demonstration method, that is very difficult approach to be used by the teacher in a classroom, when the teacher is using a demonstration method, the retention of material is only up to 30%. When the teacher is creating discussion based group classes, the retention of material is 50%. When the students are doing something by their own, the retention of material is 75%. And when the teacher is teaching other and there is an immediate use of that teaching, the retention of material is up to 90%. So it is the teacher who is going to decide that what teaching methodology is most appropriate as per the lesson outcome or the learning outcome that is defined by me. Let's take an example of the learning outcome define. So if the learning outcome is defined from the methods given, what method as per your opinion is more suitable? Is it lecture, reading, audiovisual, demonstration, discussion group? What method is more suitable for defining? Yes, any member? It is memorization of information only. So in a lecture method, the teacher will provide the definition, and with the help of reading, the students are able to memorize that information. If the method is explain something, so demonstration is the best teaching methodology if you are dealing with the content whose question started with explanation. If it is an open ended question, the discussion group is the best teaching methodology. If it is a project based on a practical activity, or you want your student to use that immediate teaching learning, it may be the laboratory environment that is more conducive for such kind of statement. So depending upon what environment you want to create, the teacher need to select different methodology. So these teaching strategies help us to develop different form of communication skill. They help us to understand the course material with an active participation. The students are able to start thinking critically about that information. When the students are working in group, they are able to develop team and good interpersonal relationship. When the autonomy or the flexibility is provided to the student and they are free to work, the more initiative or number of ideas generated by the student, the students are able to the teacher is able to better meets the need of the student with varying learning style. It will increase student motivation, investment, and performance. So these are the different benefits of these teaching methodology. But at the same time, when we are in the process of using these advanced teaching methodology, we need to consider, depending upon in which institute or what kind of facility is available with you, there are certain barriers that we need to identify before planning for such kind of classes. The very first one is the teacher need to be expert in that content area. So these teaching methodology need preparation at the part of the teacher also, because one, when the students are preparing information, they can access a vast amount of information, and that information must also be available with the teacher. May be difficult to organize active learning experiences initially when these kind of activities are new for the student and they are in the habit of spoon feeding of the information. They may not be well aligned with these kind of classes, so you may feel difficulty. The students are not ready to work a lot as far as these kind of experiences are concerned. It requires more time and energy and may be stressful for the teacher. So you need to have a larger preparation for these kind of classes. The teacher may receive less favorable evaluation from the student, and student may be stressed because of the necessity to adapt to the new way of learning. So these can be considered before selecting any of the teaching strategy. So you can select n number of teaching methods from the available list. Time for pre-classes preparation is not much as compared to the recycling of the old lecture. Group activities can be planned. Teaching does not equal to learning always. So if it is your initial stage, you need to learn yourself first. Only then the teaching results into equivalent amount of learning, and ultimately your students will enjoy the experience. So exercise humility. Keep in mind that there's always someone superior than you. Even a child can teach you something new. So in this information age, when we are in the process of using these developmental teaching approaches, we need to consider that my student in a class may provide me an additional or a new information that was not known to me. So as an individual, we need to respectful for our students also, so that they consider ourselves as their part. So that is an essential requirement that we need to consider. Another important thing that we need to consider is how I am going to design these kind of classes. So when it comes to the or how I'm going to select an appropriate teaching methodology. So we need to follow a cyclic approach which contains 6 different steps. The very first one is the attainment of initial learning. So my next question to all of you is, when it comes to designing the lesson plan or the learning outcome, how you design it? What are the different factors you consider before designing learning outcomes for the students? Yes, any member from the group? When it comes to the conception of the goals or design of the learning outcomes, previously, before the steps to be designed by the teacher, The teacher need to know about the level of the students available in the class. Level of the student means their past experiences, up to what level they will be able to cover this particular subject, and what are the different kind of experiences they already have, so that teacher can plan classes accordingly to give them enriched classroom. So past experiences or general specification in line with the subject need to be identified by the teacher, and after identifying all these factors, the teacher need to design different goals or objectives by analyzing the syllabus or the curriculum. So once the learning outcome is being designed, it is clear to the teacher that whether those learning outcome is for knowledge development, psychomotor development, or modification of behavior. So depending upon the nature of the outcome or depending upon the level of the student population, the teacher need to find out what is the more appropriate strategy to develop to achieve this learning outcome. Say for example, if subject is totally numerical or classes for the subject of mathematics, so in that particular case, the teaching aid essential for the teacher is chalk and board, and teacher is going to develop the content step by step in front of the class student and then give practice based exercises to the student. If the class is say for the subject of human resource management or quality management, in that particular case the industrial case studies need to be selected by the teacher. Few of the classes must be full of discussion. There must be few classes in which the student will use presentation as a teaching approach, or the flipped sessions can also be think of. So depending upon the nature of the subject, the teacher need to think of that what can be the different tricks by the use of which it is possible for me to achieve the learning outcome. So once the teaching methodology is being used, the teacher need to check the level of understanding developed among student population by inquiring and expedition. And once that inquiry is over, the teacher or the department will verify that whether this teaching strategy is more appropriate for my students to learn, and then used as teaching methodology for evaluation of learning. So these are the 6 different steps on the basis of which we can select any of the teaching methodology. So these are the details of the subject. Another important thing that we need to consider at institute level is in terms of classrooms, what are the different things that must be there. In these classrooms there are certain requirements. So when we are using discussion, the furniture must be movable, student must be able to sit in a group, or there needs to be a L type of sitting arrangement where student on L type of benches can sit together and work. There may be a 24 into 7 internet facility required by the student. There may be laptop facility or monitor facility in the classroom environment that is essential when the students are working for open ended statement. There may be the time schedule that is more flexible for the coverage of larger information within a given class. So teacher is going to create an environment, but all those resources need to be considered by the management to provide if they are willing to use advanced teaching strategies. Student will be the charge of the activity, and role of the teacher is to facilitate. So teacher will provide corrective action, teacher will guide the student to work towards that particular activity, but who will be the major active participant in the whole process? It is the student who is performing that activity. The teacher will design the specific task or the behavioral related task for the student, so that student can be fully engaged. Student create meaning and value of the learning. So the student is going to collect information from the student performance. So these are few of the requirements of an active learning classroom that the teacher need to consider before designing a class. Next, the most important thing is the active learning and the different LOs. So when it comes to an active learning environment, the role of the teacher in these kind of classes is to facilitate the environment for learning and set learning goals for the classroom and clearly define the purpose of an activity. So we are not simply defining the activity for ourselves, but whenever we are giving activity, a complete task description of that activity need to be given to the student. Say if you are giving written assignment to your students again and again, as a faculty you need to think of that whether your objective of giving this particular activity is that student must be able to write in a concise or a coherent manner. So you want to develop writing skills among students a lot. So next time when you are assigning this kind of activity, think of that whether that objective is attained by my students or not. If not, I can go by this particular activity. But if my purpose is not that the student will be excellent in writing, my objective is the student must be able to develop their understanding for the subject, I may think of a different kind of activity. So teacher will create an environment that will facilitate and develop the student performance, and accordingly the teacher will define the different LOs. So kindly have a look on all these activities that have been displayed for all of you on screen. So at the last of the session, I want to add that when it comes to, yes, is there any question from the participants? Yes, Amar sir. Is there
Yeah.
any question?
Yeah, madam, we let's say we have conducted some activity. Based on that, we have analyzed the activity also, and we have seen that now, yes, there is active participation amongst the students. But do we have to means we have to measure how much improvement is there in the students, or do we have to reflect the improvement in students happened through some result wise, or anywhere we have to compare that improvement?
So when the teacher is there available with the students in a class, sir, so it is not that always you are going for a scoring kind of evaluation. Just by discussing with the student, having the collection of different observation, say let's make it more simple. Say for example, students are working in a laboratory environment in a group, and teacher is always available in the laboratory sessions. So when the group of students are working together, the teacher is simply observing them, and uh, to few of the students in the group, the teachers start asking questions. So if the students are not ready with the responses, it is very clear to the teacher that students are not taking part in activity. But if the students are ready with the responses, the teacher can either elaborate the discussion, or teacher can come to the conclusion that yes, students are working towards that particular activity. So when we said assessment of student performance, it is not always on copy and pen or paper. Assessment of student performance can be by asking verbal questions, it can be with the help of observation, or teacher can also plan for the peer evaluation kind of activity. So you can ask the group of the student whosoever working together, okay, if they're working on a project, you can ask, okay, if there are about 5 members, what are the role and responsibility that you assigned to each other. So from that particular discussion, you come to the conclusion that up to what level they are preparing, how they are preparing, and what needs to be improved. So teacher need to be fully involved when the students are working in his or her presence.
Okay, means suppose if there is any NBA visit, will they ask us that okay, what is the outcome of this activity? Means whether students have participated in any event or any poster presentation or paper presentation like that. Means do we have to correlate these activities with such outcomes like that?
That is an outcome, no, sir. If you are saying the students are taking part in poster competition or any another extracurricular activity, that is the part of their behavioral modification. So we are not just focusing on cognitive and psychomotor development, but as a stakeholder, majorly industry. So industry demand the development of soft skills among student also. So that
Okay.
is why there are full of extracurricular activities given to the student, so that they are able to know how to work in team, how to manage other, how to lead other, what are the different social skills or social awareness we need to develop among with the formal education system when they are visiting different industries. Object, what will be the objective? It is not only they are developing or having feeling of the real working environment, but at the same time when they are interacting with the industry personnel, they are developing their soft skills or employable skills. So that is the kind of outcome that we want our students to develop.
Okay, madam. Thank you so much, madam.
Thank you very much, sir. So every activity that is given in the curriculum of the student, whether a main activity or the extracurricular activity, there is an objective behind that activity. Field visit, survey visit, engineering drawing, industrial internship, industrial training. So all these activities has a purpose to serve in that particular stream of education. So advanced strategies are divided mainly into three different categories, that is cooperative, collaborative, and active learning. So collaborative learning are mainly used for more mature student to whom we consider their social skills are already developed. So we provide flexibility to those students and ask the students to work maybe on a project and group of students working together, and as and when required they come to the faculty and collect information. Cooperative learning strategies for more immature student who are very new to this particular system. So in cooperative learning strategy, the teacher will create a group or team of the student that can work together on an activity that is designed by the teacher. So there are many activities covered under cooperative and collaborative depending upon the type of the group that the teacher designed. So this is all about this particular session. As far as the elaborated discussion of these teaching strategies are concerned, in our education and education management department, we specifically designed and run one program on advanced instructional teaching strategy. So in that STC, in every session, we elaborated one or two teaching methodology. So in this session, it is just an overview. So for the elaborated discussion, you can either go to YouTube, listen to the video recorded lectures available from NITA Chandigarh, or you can have advanced instructional strategy 5-day program where we are going to cover maximum, not all, but maximum of individual, cooperative, and collaborative strategies. So thank you very much, all the participants. This is all from my side. If you have any question, you are requested to kindly unmute and ask. Any member, if you have any question.